My guest Marley shares the shocking mistake that she made that caused them to separate and nearly ended her marriage. And she also shares exactly what she did and what she said to her husband that brought him back home and rebuilt their marriage better than ever. Marley, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to hear your story today.
Thank you, Laura. I'm kind of nervous because the number of nights that I have laid in bed kind of dreaming of this day is just, there's so many, and I'm so excited to be here. So,
That is awesome. Yeah, we're doing a little victory lap here. It's exciting. This is a triumph. But let's start from the bad old days. What was going on? What was going wrong in your marriage?
okay. So I'll probably take you way back because we actually started dating when I was 19 years old. He was like 21, and we were kind of wild. Like we were partiers. We were drinking pretty heavily, and things get kind of sloppy when you're doing that kind of a thing. And there was infidelity early on, so he actually cheated on me. There was just messy stuff going on. We would break up, we'd get back together. Like, I guess it was kind of explosive from the get-go. uh but we were always still very like drawn to each other, right? We kept getting back together. And so we finally broke up for about 6 months at one point. I moved to another state. I was really thinking it was the end. And then we reconnected. And I think in order to justify it to myself and to my friends and to everyone, because again, it had just been so toxic by that point, I really implemented a set of rules, AKA control to the maximum extreme. I had full access to his phone, full access to his text, full access to his location at all times. And we had this new policy about honesty, right? We're going to be so honest. Like, as long as we're honest, we can do anything and everything's okay as long as we're being honest, which as you've talked about many times, can kind of get you into a bit of a trap of just saying whatever comes to the top of your brain and gets really toxic really fast. But, that worked for us for some time. So he loved me enough. He obliged to all my rules and all my control. We wound up getting married. We had a son. And the control really never stopped. I remember when I was pregnant, I kicked him out of the house and made him sleep in his van until he quit smoking cigarettes, because I was just like, we're not going to have a baby until you quit smoking. And it was pretty crazy. So, um, it
You're
really,
so accountable about the way you tell it now. It's really cute because, like, there could be a whole different version of that story. It's like he was smoking and we wanted to have a family and it was unreasonable. And so I made him quit, but the way you tell it is anyway.
right. And it's just hilarious because it never actually worked, but
Yeah.
um, so, but it really got worse during COVID. So I had this bright idea during COVID. I was working remotely now that we should just move into an RV and travel the world. So my husband, who loves to make me happy, obliged, and he shut down his business. And so I was like the sole breadwinner. I was working remotely and we were just traveling with our son, and he was driving this massive RV. And he was full-time daddy daycare in a different city every week, right? So there was a lot of really fun, happy memories during that time, but it also got pretty rough because we had no socialization, we had no friends, we had no support system, and like it's kind of stressful to travel every single week. Um, so we're fighting a lot then, right? A lot of like bad fights. And then at one point, he actually came to me, not even during a one time though, and he basically said, I want to sleep with other people. He's like, I really just think it's something that I need. I think this is what's going to make me happy. And you have to kind of remember, like back then, we really viewed ourselves as like progressive, modern. We had these reverse gender roles,
Yeah.
religious at all. And so I was like, okay, like as long as you're being honest, again, just like honesty is the most important thing. And as long as you're being honest, then okay. And I told him it was okay. I think it's Esther Perel who has some kind of quote that's like, you just can't be everything to everyone. You can't be their therapist and their lover and their best friend and all the things. And I was just like, okay, I just can't like be this like sex boy that he apparently needs, right? Because he's such a pervert, right? Like in my head, I'm so elite compared to him. Uh, Now I see that he was like basically coming to me and he's just like begging for intimacy, but I didn't even see that at the time. Like, I really think my husband just wanted to feel really connected to me, which for him, of course, meant better sex. But like to me, it was like, so, anyways, I was like, okay, you can do it. There's a lot going on too. He really wasn't happy. And I also started getting really into like health and wellness during this time. So I'm like getting really controlling about what we're eating. Like, parenting. I'm acting like I'm better than him at parenting. So all that started going on. And it's still COVID. So we're not really like seeing our friends or being social, which is sort of our thing. So we moved back home, come back to our old house. And he's still like on these dating apps. I mean, he's actively on the apps and like talking to other women. Um, and we kind of just got to where we're talking about opening our marriage. Like it kind of became like something exciting we were both talking about, but he never acted on it. Ever.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow. He had your full permission
Yes.
and he didn't act on it.
And he did not act on it.
Wow.
So, Um, but I guess because there had been like previous, not to like justify myself, but because there had been previous infidelity while we were dating, 8 years ago, I think I really thought that he was going to, right?
Huh.
Um,
Yeah.
so I was out with coworkers one night, had too much to drink, and I wound up back at a hotel room with one of my coworkers. And there's so much alcohol involved. It's hard to say, exactly what happened, but yeah, that was a earth-shaking moment for me, to say the least. Um, but I came home and I told him everything because again, honesty.
Honesty.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely regretted it, but I didn't do it maliciously, and I guess I didn't really think it would be that big of a deal because of all the other stuff going on, right? And it wasn't like we had a bad day, we cried it out, and we went on. Like he didn't leave right away. Everything was fine. For probably, I think it was like 9 months. But I still had no skills, right? So I'm continuing to be like extremely disrespectful, extremely controlling, especially about all this health stuff. I'm like essentially telling him all the time he's a bad parent, he has a bad diet, kind of just like I'm still controlling him. And in his mind, I've cheated on him as well. So it's like that's just like the icing on the cake at this point. It also kind of gave him an out, right? Where he's like in his head, well, she cheated too. So he also started having like angry outbursts during this time. Shocker. He's like horrible mood swings. I diagnosed him at one point, I think, with like borderline personality disorder. I thought he was having a midlife crisis. I mean, I was all over his paper about all the things going wrong with him. We tried therapy at this point, and I remember in the therapy appointment saying like, actually, our only issue is that he can't control his temper. And
Okay.
um, needless to say, he never wanted to go back to therapy after that moment. And I think that's when I really just started to feel like hopeless, especially for him. But for me, it's just funny because I never really even expected better. I kind of thought this is what marriage was. That like, yeah, we're not gonna like be lovey-dovey all the time. That's insane. Like we're busy working adults with children. Like it's just not gonna be that way. Uh, but my husband didn't want that kind of marriage, and he left. So he actually packed up all his stuff. He moved to his friend's house. He told his parents and like all of his family, she cheated on me. It's over.
Marley. Oh my gosh.
And he started sleeping with his hairdresser.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, ouch, 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 ouch.
Yes.
Painful. Scary.
I mean, I was pretty hopeless, Laura, but that was all like about the time I found the skills. Thank God. I actually think I was searching the midlife crisis thing. I was like, how do you deal with your husband in a midlife crisis? And I remember listening to that first episode and being like, Cass is acting like this is all my fault. Like, his fault. Like, this is not what I want to listen to. And I turned it off, but I Googled something else later. It just kept coming back. Because again, it's like all the things, like how to deal with a husband with borderline personality disorder. Like Laura Doyle just kept, the universe is really shoving you my way.
I was stalking you. That's what
It
happened.
had to be that.
I think it, and I have to say, you guys are not in midlife yet. I don't think you look pretty young. So, it's funny. I just have to, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess I mean,
he's like,
about the midlife crisis thing. But anyway, yeah.
yeah, he'll be 5. So I don't know. Whatever he told us. But so I went to what I call like Laura Doyle boarding school. I mean, I became Laura Doyle obsessed. So like I listened to every podcast. I read both of your books. I joined the Ridiculously Happy Wives. I did all of the modules in that thing. I got a coach. I mean, I was in it because it was the only thing giving me any kind of hope at all. So,
You wanted your marriage back.
oh
Wait,
my,
yeah. So, I mean, one part I would I would love to hear like what happened between you listen to the podcast and you're like, she's making it be like it's all my fault to the part. I mean, I get that I was stalking you and I kept showing up, but how did you get to the part where you're like, I want to be all in on this?
honestly, I think it was when he left. Like, and that's why I would still say to this day, like, I would never wish that upon anyone, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I don't think I would have ever had the courage or the like, I would have never taken that look in the mirror. Like, I had to. I had no other choice except for I was like, well, this lady says she can fix anything. So maybe, we're going to go with this.
I love it. So desperation, like with me, I just did not want to be divorced. So you were desperate too. You really wanted that marriage back.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. And, we had a son too. So it wasn't just me. It was for him too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, that sounds incredibly courageous to me that you decided to like, I'm going to stand for this, even though it felt pretty hopeless, it sounds like. And you went
Yes.
all in so far in, like as far in as you could get. You were like, I'm obsessed with this now. This is
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
So, what was the first thing you started doing differently?
I was really throwing spaghetti at the wall at first. I mean, I was doing all the things. So I was doing daily gratitude texts. I wrote an apology letter.
Wow.
Uh, I I remember trying to like really push control. It was so crazy though that I like remember letting him cook dinner one night because I'd been so uptight about food and what we were eating. That I like let him cook dinner. So it started with small things like that. Um, and Coach Ann really helped me too. So we still had a Disney trip planned, like in the middle of this whole thing. So we still went to Disney World as a family with our son. And she was like, well, just, throw on some feminine dresses and like maybe paint your nails pink. Remember to slip back into the feminine because remember, I'm the breadwinner as well. So like I have a very kind of like masculine job all day. And I remember being like, dresses, nails. Like I hadn't worn a dress in 5 years. I hadn't painted my nails. Like none of these things. Like, yeah, it was pretty bad.
I'm looking at your nails right now. They're pretty colors. So yeah.
So spend every month I get them done.
Okay, we've got jewelry on. You've got a pretty like purpley color, very feminine, right? So okay. So but
Yeah,
at the time this was not the way. So
right.
that was a stretch for you to just even think of yourself as a feminine being, it sounds like.
Yes. And he was all over me at Disney World. But he still went back to his friend's house when we got back. He did not come home. So yeah, I was trying all of the skills, I would say. But I do remember there being like one time when he came home and we had some kind of fight about something. And it was the first time I had ever used I hear you. And it like it just the fight just ended. And I was like, wow, like the fight is over. Like that's all it took. And that was a moment where I was like, okay, I know this is gonna work. Like I know it's gonna work because I didn't give up anything. Like I didn't feel like I, broke down and let him just like say whatever he wanted to say and I didn't get my feelings out. But I actually heard him out. And it also made me realize like, oh my God, that's all he wants is just to be heard. Like it's not that much. He just wants to feel like he's being heard. And you have not done that in such a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that is so sweet. That's very vulnerable of you to say. And it's super accountable too. Again, so this was a breakthrough. You figured out how to end fights like with like 3 words.
Yes. Yes. And I still need to, remember those words sometimes. They're not always the tip of my tongue, but um
It didn't feel like you had to dumb down or be less.
yeah, give in to him. It wasn't like I was giving in. I'm just saying I hear you. I have a different opinion, but I hear what you're saying as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And I mean, and some people might say, wait, you apologize to him? He's the one that moved out. He's, sleeping with the hairdresser. I mean, how did you get yourself to that spot? Good. Good.
Definitely about the like infidelity on my part. I apologized about that. I apologized a lot for being disrespectful, which this is another little like what do you always say? You're the master of your own life. And
You're the expert.
disrespect word again, we're like progressive, like that did not land for us.
Too old fashioned.
I found if anyone else is looking for a tip is rude. I say the word rude and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I was being rude when I did blah blah blah. And I say that all the time now still, and it just really kind of lands better for us. So I just thought that was
That's right. I love that. You're the expert on your own life. That's a great example of it. Like that word works better in your relationship.
yes.
So that's what you lean on. That's perfect. Yeah. Love it.
The one that I struggled with the most, the skill, which of course, as you said, is the most important, was self-care. Like that one took me forever to figure out because I was not your typical like burnout mom. I had full-time childcare. I had this job at this time specifically that was paying a lot while I was doing very little. So I had all this free time. I was going to the gym. I was eating healthy. I was cooking healthy recipes. I was working on meditation. I had time to listen to every single Laura Doyle podcast. And I could kind of see that the other skills were working, but he still wasn't home. Like it's still, it wasn't this magic bullet that I was hoping for. And for me, the self-care really, I remember going to Coach Ann and I was kind of on the fence at that point. I was like, she's not working. I can't keep clinging to this hope. Like it's killing me to still like live in this limbo.
Ah,
And I remember Coach Ann told me, she was like, make a list of what your ideal life looks like. Just focus on that. And what your ideal partner looks like. And I did that. And first of all, I realized, I really do want a masculine man. First of all, like that is my desire. And, it's funny. You maybe don't want every single thing that comes with that 100% of the time, but that is a very specific type of man. Like I didn't want a man who wasn't maybe going to push back or have an opinion, that kind of a thing. And I also decided at that point in time that I wanted to move. and I wanted to move closer to my parents. I wanted a new house. I wanted a fresh start. Um, and so that really allowed me to kind of just release control of the timeline. Maybe it's been and maybe it's not. But whoever it is, like it may just take some time. It's gonna be some time. It could be a couple of years, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna build the rest of my life and I'm gonna move forward as if, you know, as if I'm happy, as if this is still my life and I'm not just in this limbo of waiting for my husband to come home and every day just thinking about my husband as my husband. Um, and I think that was actually what allowed me to start being happy. I started getting excited about my future and I started seeing my friends more, which I had not been doing because I was in such a deep depression. And also I was like kind of Laura Doyle obsessed. So as much as I like truly love you, I do feel like for me, part of my breakthrough was just taking a break. Like I took a break from working on my marriage for just a little while.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and I'm not kidding, Laura. Once I did that, once I took a break from working on marriage, I started focusing on me, I started focusing on building my new life. And maybe a week or two later, I was working one day, I was working on my computer at home, and he just busts through the door in tears and he just begged, come home. Randomly. Just and it sounds crazy, but like that was truly like a spiritual experience for me where I felt like, you know, I didn't control that into happening. I expressed my desire and I just left the universe do the rest. And it was pretty amazing.
That is amazing. And I love it. I feel like there's like a wisdom bomb right there because your self-care sounds like it was pretty good already. Like, you were doing things to make yourself happy, meditating and yeah, all the things, going to the gym. But there was a part of you that was just feeling like you were just impatient, focused on when is he going to come back? Kind of not.
Yes.
And then when you really got all the way on your paper, like, okay, what does Marley want? For Marley, I want to move. I'm going to look forward to these other things that I'm going to do. And it's not, I mean, did he even know that you had made this decision to get on your paper, I guess, how would you say it?
Um, no. Mm-mm.
No.
Now he knew that I had found this podcast because again, early in skills, right when he left out of desperation, I'm like, but I know what it is. I can fix it. I have these skills now. I'll fix it. Please come home. And of course that didn't work, right? Um, but I wouldn't say, because maybe even I didn't realize at the time what had really happened, right? That there was this switch in my brain. It just, looking back now, I can see that that's what it was.
Yeah. So let's parse that out a little more because I think for every woman who's waiting for her husband to come home and feeling like, oh, there used to be a joke like patience is the seventh skill, and that always drove me crazy because I'm all like, I'm not a patient person. That's like that's not. But there was something else that you specifically did. It wasn't about being patient. It was about like let's just parse that out a little bit more. Like, was there? It sounds like you kind of relinquished control of him coming home. Is that fair
Yes,
to say?
100% that. 100%.
Okay. And the control had been there before.
Yes, I was trying to use the skills into controlling him to come home. Yes.
Amen, sister. That was awesome. That is so cool, right? So the
Yeah,
breakthrough, that was, yeah, it was a spiritual experience because you were next level surrendering. Like,
totally.
I can't control him. I can't.
As soon as I surrendered, it was so fast once I did that, but it was so, you can say it, but it was not easy to get to that place. It took a lot of,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
fair to get there, but yeah.
It took a lot of despair, you say?
Yeah, to get to the point where I was just like surrendering.
Because did it feel like you were giving up on your marriage?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to distinguish the two at that point.
Yes. It really is.
Because control feels like I'm doing everything I can to get him back. And surrender feels a little bit like, well, okay, it might not happen. So I'm just giving up.
Right.
But it actually was the best thing you could have done to restore your family, it sounds like.
Totally.
So
Totally.
mysterious, isn't it? Yeah. I love that.
Now, but it won't then, right? I was like, Lord, like, is this magic? Like, because I mean, he was giving me all the things. It wasn't just about cheating. It was, I just don't love you anymore. I haven't loved you in a long time. Like all the classic things. And I mean, over and over, like he would keep popping back home to like see our son or whatever. We were still, and it just, I mean, he was relentless that it was never going to come back. Like we were, he was never miracle.
Yeah. It is a miracle. It sounds like a complete miracle. And I just really appreciate you going into the details of how you, I mean, I give you all the credit for it too, even though it was a miracle. Like you did all the things to get yourself to that point. And and I think in some ways, like the new Marley is kind of unrecognizable from the one that made her husband sleep in the van so he would quit smoking. Right. Like it's a total
Yeah.
personality transplant or something, right? There's a whole transformation there. That's pretty dang impressive. So so I appreciate getting to hear about that.
Yeah.
Um so what is your oh you have something else. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it still took time to get shiny, though, right? I think that was another thing when I was in the middle of it, too, where I was like, oh my God, it's supposed to be perfect now. And now I had all these new expectations because of the podcasts and people with their shiny marriages. And like, oh my God, he's supposed to be buying me flowers every 5 seconds. And like, that kind of thing. And I guess I just wanted to make the point that for us, it still took some time. Again, it was a personality transplant. I have continued to improve the skills over time. He's had to like unlearn that I'm not who I was, or I guess learn that I'm not who I was. And it wasn't something that like, bam, overnight, even though he came home overnight. That felt pretty instant to me. But the shiny marriage part, that took some time.
Yeah. All right, let's hear about that. Like what was that like? So you had some expectations, it sounds like, what I hear you saying is you were like trying on the skills more and more and more and growing, becoming more skillful
Yeah.
as you went along. So, well, what's it like now? What's your marriage like now?
Um, I mean, Laura, there's evidence everywhere that this man loves me and that he loves to make me happy. It's insane. Um, we recently just bought like our dream home. We got a boxer puppy, which has always been a desire of mine. I'm obsessed with boxers. And we just had our second baby, which is also something else that to go from, I don't even want to be with you to like, I want to have another child with you. It's just like, which he wasn't there at first. And I just used my skills and I just focused on what a good dad he was. And uh, I feel like I manifested this baby as well.
Yeah.
By just focusing on the positive and
Okay.
focusing on what I want. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that. So, for every woman who's listening and wants her husband to agree that they were going to have another baby, you did it how now? You focused on what a good dad he was?
Yep. I definitely did. And I would say I had a similar moment, like a spiritual experience, you could call it. When I don't know, we've been back together for a couple months at this point. And it wasn't shiny. We were still fighting, and I feel like he still really couldn't let go of the cheating thing. Like he just could not get over that. And I took some time to myself, and I actually did some work because believe it or not, for me, I think work can be a form of self-care. If I find my work exciting and purposeful, and so that's a side note. But I went and I did some work, and I was listening to Abraham Hicks because you've turned me on to this whole myth thing, weird stuff, which that's a whole other thing. But um, and she has one talk about, if you've really desired something long enough and it still hasn't come, just give it a rest, give it a rest, give it a rest. And I just told myself, okay, I want this shiny, perfect marriage. I have literally tried everything in the universe, and I'm just going to focus on what a good daddy is. Like, forget the marriage. We may never have this perfect, shiny marriage. It just may never be. He is such a good dad. And like, we're still going to partner parent our son together. And I will never regret having a baby with him. He is such an amazing father. And I'm just going to focus on it. And it was just so bizarre, Laura, because the next day, I found out I was pregnant
Oh my
unexpectedly.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yes, which we wound up having a miscarriage with that baby, because he was not ready at that point in time. He did not want a baby. So it kind of worked out, I know, in its own way, where then after that experience with the miscarriage, that was really what kind of got him excited about it. And that's how we kind of came together and decided we did want to have a second baby. And now he's 3 months old. And yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. I love that. So, yeah, this has been a very spiritual experience for you. Practices of like just really letting go and just focusing. So, but I love the way you draw those dots between I desire another baby. I'm going to be grateful for the father that he is, and that really kind of opened up that space. So that's another wisdom bomb. Great tip there. So okay, so yeah, so it wasn't, and so now, and so how's this been? This you just had a baby. You have a 3 month old,
Oh my
and that
God.
could be a big stressor on a marriage. This is your second too. You've got another kid already, right? So
Yes. Now, you know what's funny? You know what actually was really hard was pregnancy. I had a tough pregnancy this time. And I think that even more showed me the importance of self-care and like having that piece figured out because I was so tired. It's so nauseous like the entire 9 months and also like working a really big stressful job. Um, I was really struggling with self-care. And then what do you know? Like now my marriage isn't as shiny as I was hoping that it, could be. Uh, but then once I had the baby, I actually felt amazing. And we've had like the most dreamy newborn experience, which with our first son, we had the opposite. We were so traumatized from the first 3 months. But this time, I mean, my husband takes the middle of the night shift. He gets up with the baby every time. It's like, anytime it's before like 7:30, he's on call. And it's also with babies, there's also magic in releasing control, right? Last time with my first son, I'm like, but his sleep schedule and we got to sleep train and he's gonna be up all night. We can't have him in this, specific bed and all the things. And you just stress and obsess. And that honestly makes it so much worse. And now I'm like, you know what? He's a baby. He's gonna sleep when he sleeps. I'm gonna control what I can control, say on my paper with my baby. And he's already sleeping through the night. He's 3 months old. So
oh my gosh.
yeah,
You're kidding. Okay, and with your first one, how long did it take for sleeping through the night?
about 6 months. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so you got it like a 3 month. Yeah, like yeah, that's great.
it's crazy. Yes.
And how do you think all this has affected? I mean, that's a big one right there, but how has practicing intimacy skills affected your kids?
Oh man. It's funny. My first was so young when all this was going on. I can't even imagine how stressed out I would be right now if I didn't have this. Because he's just, I feel like getting into maybe his more difficult phase. He's a pretty easy toddler, but I'm like, oh my gosh, if I was trying to control every little move that he made, it would be a battle to get anything done in this house. Like the bath, putting on clothes. It's just, there's already so, yeah, kids are hard enough without you stressing and obsessing and controlling everything, right? You got to control what you can.
Yeah. So you sound like a surrendered mother.
A little bit, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, and how has your husband changed? Has he changed?
Oh my God. Yes. Um, it's funny. He actually came home the other day and, because it's a stressful time. We have two kids, right? And he had just been out. He had done something with his friends, so he was out of town, and then he had work the next day, and he had T-ball that night, and something needed to be done on the house, and like he came to me and he's like, I had a moment today where I was about to just be so pissed off because I was so stressed out, and then I just really sat there and I thought, you know what? What am I talking about? I get to go home to my like big, beautiful house in the suburbs with my like two perfect children and my super hot wife, like to go play t-ball with my son. He's like, what? why would I be stressed about that? And so it's just funny, like almost like my gratitude for the life that we have influences his in some senses.
You created a culture of gratitude in your home by leading the way with gratitude, it sounds like. So, wow, I love it. Well, this is amazing what you've done. It must have just taken incredible courage and faith to really stand for your marriage when it seemed so hopeless. And what's your tip for somebody who is where you were, where her husband's gone, there's somebody else he's sleeping with or living with, and he's not coming home. She's trying everything she can think of. She's using the skills. And she wants what you have now, where her husband comes says he's coming home to, he's excited to come home to his hot wife and his two perfect children, his beautiful home. And yeah, where they're having a dreamy, experience as co-parents. And yeah, what's your best tip for her? How should she get started? What should she do?
Um, I really do think the self-care thing, like, I guess start with whatever skill you can start with because they do snowball upon each other, right? Like once you see the ones working, it's easier to do the next. But the self-care thing, it's tricky because for me, good self-care, it has to be so exciting, so entertaining that it actually distracts me from my marriage for a minute. So like I could be laying in the bathtub eating chocolate covered strawberries thinking about my marriage and thinking about how my husband is getting on my nerves. And like that doesn't count as self-care. And for me, sometimes listening to the Lord go, oh my God, like it wasn't self-care for me because I'm still just like ruminating on my marriage over and over and over. Um, so for me, like quality time with my friends and actually getting out of the house and just like remembering there's this whole big world outside of my marriage or even going to work can really help me. And then also doing something really fun with my older child now because he's 5, so we can go. We did a pottery painting class the other day. Things like that, they're distracting enough that I'll come home and I'm in a good mood regardless, right? So I think that is like that was the missing link for me is I kept trying to do all these self-care things, but I was just obsessed with my marriage.
Ah, so kind of you were in a little bit of a malware loop, I guess it sounds like, of focusing on what was wrong with your marriage. And that's between you and finding, I love the part where you say it has to be so exciting to me. Like that is great self-care when it's like so exciting. I'm not thinking about whatever could be going wrong right now.
I'm not gonna let my disagree with my husband earlier like ruin this moment for me because it's that fun. Yeah.
And then, and since you went home with the other man, and that really wasn't the deal breaker, but it kind of did contribute to the whole thing and a sense of hopelessness. So what about to a woman who has that experience too, where she stepped outside of her marriage and thinks like, okay, he's never going to get over this now. Like, is it still an issue at your house?
No, it's not. It's just not even something that comes up. Um, and yeah, I think that was one of the most important reasons that I wanted to share the story, right? Is it seemed so hopeless because of that. Because men, it seems like, could never get over something like that versus a woman, sex isn't as important to a woman, so what do they care? But like in my situation, I mean, I do think it maybe made it a little harder, but it's not something that was impossible to get over. In fact, I don't actually think it was the root of the issue. I think that there was a lot bigger issues going on between us than.
Yeah. Wow. So it was almost a distraction to think like, oh, or like to feel hopeless about that. That wasn't it. That was
Yes.
the
Oh
thing.
my God. But that sucked a lot of my energy for a while. Yeah. That was something I had to pull myself out of.
So she like, if you could go back and talk to yourself now, what do you think you'd say?
The more you focus on it, the bigger it is. So just focus on something else. Yeah. You
With
really have got to get focused on what you want.
wow, I love it. I love it. That is inspiring, super inspiring. Like nothing can hold you back. It's really about your focus. So,
Yes.
yeah.
For
Well,
me.
what an amazing story. I'm super impressed with you and what you've created and how you've transformed. I feel like if I could, if we could go back and talk to Marley from before and talk to Marley now, like it seems like you're probably like unrecognizable and a lot more, I think, feminine and confident. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I would say so. And it's funny you say that too, because like not very long ago, my husband and I, we had some friends over and we're talking about decorating our new house. And he was like, "Oh, well, I don't get any kind of say in what we do to our house, makes all those decisions." And like, wait, my feelings. And I talked to him about it afterwards, right? And I was kind of like, ouch, because I really, I don't feel like I'm being that way and I don't want to be that way. That's not the kind of marriage that I want to have anymore. And he was like, you're right. Sometimes I forget that you're like a completely new person, but you are, and you're right. So, um, yeah, he sees it too.
He's acknowledged you. He's acknowledged this transformation you're having, and he was reacting to the old Marley.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was.
Well, I do want to congratulate you, Marley, because this is an incredible accomplishment. You get my Best Wife Award. Here it is.
Yeah.
You deserve this for your courage, your consistency, your determination to transform yourself and therefore create a happy marriage and a wonderful family for your kids. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of determination and courage to do what you did. So I'm just so impressed and happy to celebrate with you for all that you've achieved.
Woo!
Woo! You did it. And thank you so much for sharing so authentically your inspiring story, all and being so honest about all the ways that things could have gone a different way. And they didn't because you just devoted yourself to fixing your marriage. You got clear in your desires and you made them come true. And that's inspiring. If you enjoyed hearing the true story of how Marley made her struggling marriage playful and passionate again, then subscribe now to the Empowered Wife podcast. And next week's podcast, I'm going to share the best Valentine's Day presents for men if you want to feel desired and skyrocket the passion. Subscribe now.